Hello, my name is Lasha, and today we are going to have a vocabulary lesson for pre-intermediate level, and our topic for today is kitchen utensils. So I will show you into my kitchen. Let's start with the first word that we are going to learn. The first thing we are going to learn is a glass. Probably all of you know the meaning of this. This is a glass. Let me write it for you. Also, we can have a look at another thing, which is a cup. So the difference between glass and cup are that glass is made of glass and cup is usually made of other materials, porcelain and etc. Also, we have plastic cups. For example, if you go to school's cafeteria, probably you will get plastic cup or maybe paper cup. Let me write the word for you. Cup. There is one more thing that we can use if we want to drink something, and it is called a mug. Mug is much bigger than cup. Usually it is like 400 milliliters. There are some other differences between glass, cup, and mug as well. Usually we use glass for cold drinks and we use cup for hot drinks. In Turkey I have noticed that people use glass also for tea, but it mostly depends on culture. So in English-speaking countries we use glass for cold drinks and we use cup for hot drinks. As for mug, we can use mug, first of all, for beer. Usually we say a mug of beer. And also we can use mug to sometimes drink maybe soup or, in my case, coffee. I love coffee and I need to drink a lot of coffee during the day, so I prefer to use my mug for it. Now, in most situations, when we use cup for coffee or other things, we have something like this. And it comes with a cup. Does anybody know what is the name of this thing? This thing is called a saucer. I'm going to write it for you. Saucer, okay? So, we use saucer because the cup is usually hot and we need something to put it on. Saucer is made of porcelain most of the time, but if we have something very similar to it, but it's not made of porcelain and it's sometimes made of plastic or some other material, and it does not come with a cup, we buy it separately. For example, let me show it to you. I mean something like this. When our cup is hot, we can also put it on this thing. This thing is not a saucer, it has a different meaning and different word, and this one is called coaster. So the difference between saucer and coaster is that saucer is usually made of porcelain and it comes with a cup, it's together, and coaster is a separate object which we use if something is hot. Okay. The next thing that we can discuss with you is some cooking utensils. Let's start with the easy ones and let me show you something This is number one. Does anybody know what is the name of this thing? Usually we boil something in it. This one has two names. One name that we can use is cooking pot, and it's a very popular name and we use it in many countries like this, cooking pot. Or another name that we can use for it is casserole. Casserole is not an English word. I think it comes from French word, and the same word also has another meaning. It is some kind of food, and also it has one more meaning. Let me show you what is casserole for another meaning. This thing is also called casserole. This is something that you can use to cook something inside the oven, and you can also use it as serving vessel. So this one can also be called casserole. So the word casserole has three meanings, and we have discussed all three of them with you. Let me check if we have some comments on our YouTube channel. As we are live now, you can always ask any questions that you want, and you can also write some comments. Okay, the next thing that I'm going to show you is this object. Usually we use this object for frying. If you want to fry something, you will use something like this. And the name of this object is frying pan. Frying pan. So, of course we understand from the name that we use frying pan for frying. Okay. Before we start frying or cooking something, first of all, we need to mix some things and we need to prepare our ingredients. So for that reason, we use usually something like this. This one. This one is called a bowl. Another name for it is mixing bowl. But if you say only bowl, it's also enough. You can just say a bowl. Bowls we use for mixing something or for preparing our food, or sometimes for washing something. We can use this object also to wash our ingredients. Another thing that I will discuss with you is this object. Does anybody know what is the name of this? This object has two names. One name that we can use for this is grater, and another name that we can use is shredder. Grater is more popular than shredder, but I'm teaching you both things. When you cook something, if you fry it or if you bake it or boil it, and the object is very hot, usually you don't want to put it on the table and table surface, and we need something to put this hot object on. I mean something like this. This object. It doesn't touch the surface of the table because it has these things. So we can put this on our table and then put the hot stuff on top of it. Like this. And this thing is called cooling rack. Okay, so we use cooling rack to cool off something, to make something colder. When you are preparing your ingredients, sometimes you need to cut some of them. So for that reason, we use this object. This object is called cutting board. Let me write it for you. A cutting board. So, of course, we use a cutting board for cutting some things. When you cook your meal or your dish and then you need to save it somewhere, maybe in the fridge or maybe some other place, we need something to save this food. And the thing that we use for saving and keeping our food, something like this, this is called a container. Okay, let me write it for you. We can also say food container, and we can also say plastic container. You can open this thing, and now there are two separate pieces. This part is called a lid. For all kitchen objects, the top part is called a lid. Next thing that I can discuss with you are these objects. Does anybody know what these are and what these things are called? Usually we use it for salt, pepper, cumin, and these kind of ingredients for seasoning. This thing has two different names, and I will write both names for you. One name that we can use it is salt and pepper pots. Another name that we can use for this object is salt and pepper shakers. Okay, it has got two different names with the same meaning. The next thing that I would like to discuss with you is something that we use to hold our plates or cups or other things. Let me show it to you. Voila, this thing. This thing is used to place some food or objects on it, and this one is called a tray. A tray, okay? There is one similar word to this, a compound word, when we combine two words together and it becomes one new word. If we use eş in the beginning and then we add tray, it will be ashtray, and ashtray has different meaning from tray. Ashtray, let me show you. This is ashtray, something that we use for cigarette, and we put our ash into this thing, ashtray. Thank you, Fatih, very much. I see a comment from Fatih. The next cooking object that I would like to show you is something that we use sometimes for washing our ingredients, sometimes maybe after cooking. For example, if you want to cook macaroni, and when you boil the macaroni pasta, then you need to cool it down maybe into the water, and we use something like this. Does anybody know the name for this object? This thing is called strainer. So we use this thing if we want to sometimes cool off something and sometimes to wash our ingredients before or after cooking. Now let's move to little bit smaller objects. Küllük. Yes, küllük is ashtray. My Turkish is not very good, but because I'm a smoker, of course I know this word. Ashtray in Turkish is küllük. Ekin, I don't understand your question. Sleeve, for which object do you mean sleeve? Which one do you think we can call sleeve? I'll be waiting for Ekin's answer. But before that, let's continue. And when he writes for the pasta cooker. Actually, I have never used sleeve for the same thing. And I checked yesterday as well, because you know, in different countries, some objects are called differently. Of course, all of them are English and English language, but in some countries, different things have different names. For example, casserole, we have explained today 3 different meanings. And in France, for example, if you say casserole, everyone will understand the food casserole. But in Slavic countries, if you say casserole, everyone will understand it as a pot, something that we use for cooking. So maybe in some countries it can be called sleeve, but I have never used this word before and I have never seen this word before. So I recommend you to use strainer for it, not the sleeve. Now let's move to little bit smaller objects. And what do we need? We need to have these things. I'm sure everybody understands what these are. The right one, this one is called a fork, and this one is called a knife. Okay? Fork and knife. Let me write these things down. Fork and knife. Pay attention to one thing for the pronunciation. Knife, we pronounce as knife. We don't pronounce K in the beginning. We don't say knife, but we say knife, okay? The same thing goes for fork. We say fork, we don't really say R, because you probably know O and R sound together. If they are combined, we pronounce as long O, fork. In British English, in American English, you can pronounce R, you can say fork, okay? Next thing that I will explain to you is a spoon. Spoon. We use spoon sometimes for eating, sometimes for measurement, and sometimes for taking something. For example, if I want to put sugar into my mug of coffee, I will use spoon. We have two different types of spoon. We have a small spoon and we have big spoon, okay? They have different meanings and different words. Small one is called teaspoon. The big one is called a tablespoon, okay? Tablespoon we use for eating something most of the time, and tablespoon, teaspoon, we use for sugar or coffee or this kind of small things. Let me write them down for you. If you like watching some video recipes of some cooking stuff, or maybe reading about the recipes, sometimes you can have problem because you don't know what are the short forms for teaspoon and tablespoon. If you are watching some recipe or if you are reading a recipe in English, teaspoon is usually written like this, TSP. So if you see TSP, for example, 2 TSP of sugar, it means 2 teaspoons of sugar, not tablespoon. Tablespoon is shortened like this, TBSP. Sometimes it can be with big letter T, sometimes it can be also with small letter TBSP. So if you see TSP, it is teaspoon, and if you see TBSP, it is tablespoon, okay? The next thing that I will discuss with you is something like this. This thing has two main purposes. We can use it to open a bottle, and we can use it also to open some different kinds of bottles. Okay, the name for this thing is a corkscrew. Okay, so we use corkscrew to open some bottles. Sometimes you may see this object, corkscrew, as a tin opener also, but it is a little bit different. It's not used for bottles, it is used for jars. I will explain later to you what the jars are. The next object for now that we can discuss are something which is not very popular in your country and your culture or my culture, these things. These things are Asian kitchen utensils, I can say, and probably everyone knows the name for this. This one is called chopsticks. Yes, Machinist Man, you are absolutely correct. These ones are called chopsticks. The next object that I will describe for you is one of my favorite things in the kitchen, and I use it very often. It is something like this. Usually we can use this for mixing something. Does anybody know what is the name of this thing? This one is called a wire whisk. There is also the same word as a verb, to whisk something. And we can use this if you are mixing something, or if you are making pancakes, for example. If you want to mix sugar and eggs and flour together, this is the best thing for mixing them. Another object that we will learn with you today is usually used for boiled things, and I use it only for potato, this thing. Why do we use it? We use it to make something into a mesh. So this thing is called a mesher. Let me write it for you. Measure. So we use measure to mesh something. Mesh is a verb and measure is noun as an object. What else do we have? We have something like this. You can use this object if you are frying something, maybe. Also, we can use it to take something off the frying pan. Sometimes you can also use it for mixing. This one is called spatula. There are different kinds of spatulas. Wooden spoon. This is not a spoon. This is a different thing. Wooden spoon is a little bit different. We have something like wooden spoon, but I don't have wooden spoon at home, so I cannot show it to you. Spatula can be a rubber spatula, or it can be made of wood. Any other ingredients? Maybe it can be made of plastic as well, but the plastic one is not very useful in the kitchen. The next object that I will show you and I will teach you is something like this. Probably you can understand what is this thing. This part is the most important for this object. This thing is called peeler. Okay? Because we peel something with this. Next one that I will explain to you is this object. We use this object maybe to put oil on something, or sometimes to put scrambled eggs and mixed eggs on top of the baking stuff usually, or maybe for melted butter as well to put on something. This one doesn't have very special name because we already know that similar things are called brushes, so this one is also called cooking brush. Yeah, you are correct, guys. This one is called a cooking brush, or also second name is pastry brush. I will write the second one for you because it's more popular. Pastry brush. Pastry, you understand, are all things baked. We call them pastry. Okay, something that you need dough for is pastry. What else do I have? For baking, I have one more thing. This object. We use this object like this to make the dough into smaller part and to take out the dough, to open the dough also we can say. This thing is called rolling pin. Yes, you are kind of correct. We take the verb roll and we say rolling pin. What else do I have? I have something that we use for liquid things. This object. Usually we take hot liquid objects with this thing and we put them into the plate or maybe into cup or into bowl. Yes, I could. Probably in Turkish it's kepçe. In English this one is called ladle. Let me write it for you. So we use ladle to take some hot liquid thing from maybe casserole into the plate. Next one that I will explain to you is this object. Does anybody know the name for this object? I will be waiting for your answers then. If nobody says correct answer, I will write it for you. The most popular name for this object is slotted spoon. It has also some other names because this object is not very popular, and in many languages maybe we don't even have a special name for this. Just people use slotted spoon to talk about this object. It can also have different names, but this one is the most popular name. So far, I think I have explained all the utensils that I have in my kitchen. Now let's have a look at what we have learned today. So, we have learned glass, cup, saucer, coaster, mug, cooking pot, casserole, frying pan, bowl, grater, cooling rack, cutting board, container, lid, salt and pepper pots or salt and pepper shakers, tray, ashtray, strainer, fork, knife, teaspoon, tablespoon, corkscrew, chopsticks, wire whisk, masher, spatula, peeler, pastry brush, rolling pin, ladle, and slotted spoon. These are all objects, so they are nouns. Now let me teach you some verbs related to kitchen and cooking. Probably all of you know the first verb that I will explain to you, prepare. We can use this verb if we talk about foods, especially for salad or these kind of things. We can say, I will prepare a salad, or I prepared a salad yesterday. All of you understand the meaning in this situation. Also, we use the verb prepare to make your ingredients ready for cooking. So prepare is usually before cooking. The verb mix, I think all of you understand, is when you want to combine different things together. This is called mix. The next verb that we can discuss with you is related to the way of cooking. How can we cook? Good job, Shahin. Of course, we can boil something. Boil is when you put something into the water and make the water hot, heat up the water and what is inside it. This is boil. What are other ways of cooking? What else can we do? How can we cook our things? True. Another way that we can cook is to fry something. Let me write one more word for you and then let's discuss the difference between them. Fry and roast. They are kind of similar for some people maybe, but they have different meanings actually because the way of cooking is different. Roasting is when you put something maybe into the oven or maybe on top of the oven, while frying is when you heat up the oil and you put something inside the hot oil, okay? So if you put ingredient inside hot oil, it is called fry. For example, fried potatoes, probably everybody knows this one, while roast we can use maybe for chicken, roasted chicken. You don't put chicken into the hot oil. Okay. I see from comments we have another verb, bake. Yes, it is absolutely true. We can use the verb bake when you prepare something inside the oven, in the oven. Thank you, Aykut, for your translation. I see another verb is to smoke something. Yes, smoked vegetables or maybe smoked things. It is if you cook something not on top of the oven, but you cook it on the smoke. So when the hot air comes from the cooker and we prepare things not directly on the cooker, this we call smoke. Another verb that probably all of you know is grill. To grill something is if you use griller and you cook your chicken or vegetables on a grill, this we call grill. Of course, Shahin, barbecue is also correct. This is also another way of cooking. For barbecue, normally it is a noun, but sometimes it can also be used as a verb. But it's not official to use as a verb, so I will not write it for you. One more thing that we can discuss with you today is to steam. Do you know what is the meaning of steam? And do you know how we can steam things? Usually, to steam something, you need to boil some water. Then on top of this casserole or pot, you put another thing, and on this another thing, you put vegetables. So vegetables don't touch the oil. Vegetables are not inside the oil. Azime is writing in Turkish buhar. Probably it is true. This will be steam in Turkish. Maybe it can be buhar. I think this one is correct. For this lesson, I think we have learned a lot of words. These words are not very common and often used, but for all of you who loves cooking and who loves watching cooking shows or reading some recipes online, these words will be very important, I think. Let's have a break now for 15 minutes, and after 15 minutes I will be back. See you.